Hello and welcome to another movie corner. Once again, I'm by myself mainly because I just want to get this video done and haven't had a chance to actually record it with the spouse. So today's video is on Fantastic Four First Steps. And it's been a couple, I think a week or two since I've seen the movie. I saw it like opening weekend. And I love this movie. Just like with Superman, if you've seen my reviews, you know how much I hate the old Fantastic Four films. That goes into even Fan Four Stick, the original uh, fan, the 2005 and Rise of the Silver Surfer. I'm not a big fan of them. In fact, the original Fantastic Four was one of my original reviews all the way back in 2014. Uh, so it's been that long since I reviewed the first film. But that being said, I really enjoyed this film. I believe the reason I enjoyed it so much is because it actually feels like Fantastic Four. Let me explain my point. When I was growing up, Fantastic Four always felt like that one group within Marvel that were separated from the rest of Marvel. They always had their own little universe, um, and it felt like they were trapped in our universe with the rest of Marvel, if that makes any sense. Um, I grew up with even though I wasn't born in that time because of my father, I grew up watching the 60s and 80s cartoons and stuff like that. Um, or the 70s and 80s cartoons. But I always grew up Human Torch has always been one of my favorite characters. I've loved in Fantastic or I love Mr. Fantastic. I'm not really big on the Thing, and Invisible Woman is OP as fuck. But this movie actually feels like a family dynamic. The entire point of the Fantastic Four is a family dynamic. And Fan Four Stick, which my review for that is coming soon once it gets edited. Fan Four Stick does not feel like it has any sort of family cohesion. It feels like a bunch of loners who are forced together and there's no unit. The 2005 and sequel, while there's a family aspect, it doesn't feel like they themselves are a family. If that makes sense. Like in world they're a family, but it doesn't feel like they're a family. And that's what I feel like these Fantastic Four films have ignored the entire we are a family aspect of everything. Um, so with that being said, I'm gonna try to keep this spoiler free, um, for those who haven't seen it yet. But um, the way this worked is Fantastic Four is set in its own universe away from the rest of the MCU. Just like, Deadpool had his own universe in Deadpool versus Wolverine, etc., etc. All that is separate from the main continuity of the MCU universe, which I'm sure is going to get talked about in Doomsday. Um, so believe that it's going to happen and that eventually. But so the basic plot of this is that the Fantastic Four have been heroes for 4 years. Da-da-da-da. They've been heroes for 4 years after their incident, but they've never really fought anyone big. It's all been low stakes villains like Mole Man or God, I can't think of any of the ones that they named in the montage. But basically like Mole Man. So the Coming of Galactus story was really good. Um so basic plot: Coming of Galactus, Silver Surfer warns Fantastic Four that that Galactus is coming to destroy the world, and the movie is them deciding on how to stop this event from happening. That's the plot. And that's all you need. And I believe that, the beginning of the movie, I want to say like the first 10 minutes of it is grounded in explaining everything, but we don't get a full, we see everything happening. It's shot in like old 80s documentaries where, uh, narration talks about all the sciencey shit that happens to them, and that's how they get their powers. It's short, simple, to the point, and at this point, with it being the fifth film, we know what their origin is. And I believe, like what James Gunn said about Superman, I am at a point of I am tired of seeing the same origin stories over and over again. It's one thing if it's like, Black Panther, where we only have two movies for him. It's different when it comes to a character we've never seen in something like, we've seen 5 times, or Spider-Man, who, Uncle Ben just can't stay alive. But I mean, just simple stuff like that makes it really stand out more. And I believe it helps. I don't want to go into big spoiler heavy stuff, but I do enjoy Pedro Pascal. I've always liked him as an actor. Um, which reminds me, I still need to finish Last of Us. But he does really, really well with everything that he's asked to do as Mr. Fantastic. I feel like they made him a little bit more um, neurotypical and slightly autistic more than other iterations, which I have always seen as, Mr. Fantastic is autistic. I've always said that in my own personal canon. I don't know if that's how it's meant to be, but that's how I see it. Um, but the way that everything happens is basically we get Franklin is born, and the whole point of the I'm scatterbrained today. The plot is takes into account Susan getting pregnant with Franklin. Galactus wants Franklin's power, just like in the comics. Um, and part of the plot, ironically, is kind of like what happens in Superman, where the four decide they're not going to, give up Franklin because they're not going to sacrifice one of their own just to protect the world. It's not how they work. And because of their lack of sacrifice, the city turns on them, just like in Superman, where everyone turns on him because of the message that was faked. So we have that aspect of the world is relying on us even though they're against us, which I really enjoy those type of stories. I wouldn't be a fan of Spider-Man if I wasn't. Um, so stuff like that. Um, in return of that, we get a very touching moment from Susan, um, describing her pain that she's going through, having to think about this, giving everything up. So from that, we get the aspect of, while all of that is going on with Franklin, Johnny is determined to figure out why the Silver Surfer is doing what she is doing. And that's one of the big things that people hated about the cast announcing. Her Silver Surfer's a female in this, ignoring the simple fact that, it's promoted as a new universe. It's not going off of comics, and we're just gender swapping something that's happened in the fucking comics. Don't get me started on that incel shit. But it's one of those things that they actively do, and you see John, and that's one of the big things I love about this version of Johnny. They actually show how intelligent Johnny actually is. And in the comics, yes, he's that playboy. Yes, um he's that hothead that jumps into action. But at the same time, he has always been a high intelligent character. He may not be as intelligent as Tony or Reed, but he's not some idiot like, you know, Chris Evans' version Trace, and Michael B. Jordan's completely different Johnny. So I loved Reed. I loved, honestly, I just really enjoyed this movie. Um, I loved the climax battle. Everyone using their powers. I love that it showcased that Reed does have a limit on his stretchability. I loved that it showcased how powerful Invisible Woman really is. Um, I do feel like the film could have been, like, some of it could have been cut. Uh, like, the subplot with Ben. But at the same time, I feel like Ben didn't get a lot of screen time by himself. Um, so I feel like we could have gotten more Ben, but the storyline that focused on Ben could have been dropped or at least changed around. I just didn't like the whole concept of um, Ben falling for the girl at the orphanage. But I do like the portrayal of Ben. The CGI for the thing is really good. Um, Seeing Galactus on the big screen, for all of you who naysay and said that Galactus can't be done right, that's why we had to turn you into a clown and no, Rise of the Silver Surfer was a shit fest in terms of portraying Galactus. This, you see the full um scope of how huge Galactus himself is. And I feel like the best part about that cinematography is that it's never shown through Galactus's eyes. It is always an over the shoulder shot of Galactus himself, or you are looking up like you are the Fantastic Four. So his, you know, portrayal has all throughout the whole film, you see how massive he is. And I squealed seeing Galactus dropping onto the Earth the first time. It was so great. Um, so, like I've been saying, there is a lot of things I loved about this film. I will go into a higher detail review once, you know, one of my rules for Superhero Critic is it's got to be out for at least a year so I can buy the DVD so I can rip it and all that kind of stuff. So it is one of those things that I do enjoy. Um, so with that being said, I really did enjoy it, and I honestly think it's the first uh MCU film I've really enjoyed since No Way Home. Like I like Multiversal Madness, but I really feel like this one is going to change the route MCU's going. So that being said, tell me what you think down below. Leave a comment, have a conversation with me. That being said, thank you for watching. This has been Movie Corner. I'm Peanut, and have a nice day.